So where in the last session when we were discussing about verbal communication, we have discussed about the oral and written communication. So I'm just revising. We'll just go through quickly, have a quick look on what we did in the last session that was related to the oral communication and the verbal communication heading. So these we are talking about the different channels of communication, right? There are different channels of communication and how we have divided those different channels of communication into different subgroups. So here verbal communication is again divided into two different forms of communication. That is oral and that second is written. So if we talk about oral, which we have discussed, so oral communication here means that maximum part of the communication, if we're talking about oral, here 30% of the oral communication is dependent upon your speaking, what you're speaking, what you're presenting, and 45% is in listening. So oral communication is basically the communication which we are doing right now. What we are doing right now? We are using oral mode of communication where I am speaking. Yes, along with this, we are also going with the written mode of communication because I am showing you the thing. But if this presentation wouldn't have been there, then it would have been only the oral mode of communication, which means the communication done through your spoken words. Of the working time spent in verbal communication. Now here they have divided that 100% into four different categories. That is writing, reading, speaking, and listening. So it says that of the total working time spent in verbal communication, 9% is in writing, 16 is in reading. But majority of the part, that is speaking and listening, take the majority of the part in verbal communication. That is 30% in speaking and 45% in listening. And when we talk about oral communication, one thing we need to keep in mind is it's not just about speaking, it is about the listening also. So the major aspect, the most important aspect of oral communication is listening also. Next, what are the factors in oral communication? We have discussed like who all are involved in oral communication. So if we talk about factors involved in oral communication, that is the speaker, how he speaks, what he speaks, to whom he speaks, and whether he receives a feedback. So basically, related to speakers, we need to get three answers, like how he is speaking, what he is speaking, and to whom he is speaking. Now, why we focus on to whom he is speaking? So that he can prepare his content accordingly, because many times, if you are unaware about the receiver, if you do not know to whom you have to speak, your content might not be adjusted in such a way which can easily be understandable by the receiver. For example, usually your mode of communication remains to be English, but the speaker, the receiver, is a person who is not familiar with that language. He wants you to speak either in the native language or in Hindi. In that situation, you should know to whom you are speaking so that you can make your content according to that only. And next is oral communication is only completed when you get the feedback from the receiver. The receiver's feedback is again one of the important factor in oral communication, because until and unless you are not getting the feedback from the receiver, you are not getting any type of response from the receiver, you won't be able to know whether he has understood or not. So to know that thing, it is very important to have the feedback of the receiver. And the speaker, you should also know, you should be aware about who is going to speak. Next thing is prerequisite of oral communication. For like what is required when you're communicating orally. Let's just not talk about what is written over here. We have already discussed. But if I talk in general, what things are required when you are communicating orally? What all things you need to keep in mind while going with the oral mode of communication? Just think what all things are required when you are going with the oral mode of communication. So when it comes to oral mode of communication, it should be clear and proper pronunciation of the word. The clear and the proper pronunciation of the word should be used when you are communicating. Clarity should be there, conciseness should be there, right tone should be there, and right style and vocabulary should be there. It is very, very important to have a clear and proper pronunciation of the words when you are communicating. If the information is not clear, it is not proper, the receiver won't be able to understand what you are trying to communicate, what information you are sharing. So here, clarity with words, right pronunciation, concise, right tone, and right style. Many times what happen, simple placing the comma on the wrong part, or putting the pause where the pause is not required, or stressing a wrong word can change the entire meaning of the sentence. So you need to understand like why this right tone and right style is very important. Even the vocabulary. Now, if we use a vocabulary word saying the food was very, very tasty, is it looking good when we are using very, very tasty? Is it looking good? No, it sounds so weird. Like, what is very, very tasty? We could have simply used one word. The good vocabulary would have been, the food is delicious. So it is automatically explaining that food was very tasty. It was yummy. By simply using one word, we can make other person understand the entire thing, and it is not a complicated word which we are using. So that's why it is very important to use the right vocabulary and the right tone. Now, why right tone is required? The tone of voice in communication. What is that tone of voice in communication? It is the way a person speaks. It is a way how you use your voice to get your point across. You might have come across many times, like if you would have gone into any kind of training seminars, workshop, a speaker all of a sudden raises the voice. Why he raises the tone? Why he speaks loudly? Just to bring the attention of the audience to the topic, just to make them understand that what I'm going to say right now is very important. He all of a sudden, he was speaking and he takes a pause to grab the attention. As soon as in the normal flow, if something unusual happens, like a person was speaking and sudden there was a pause, the person who was distracted, they'll also pay attention, like why the pause is there, what happened? Person was speaking in the normal tone, all of a sudden raises voice. Again, people will think why he has raised the voice. So to grab the attention, a speaker uses lot of different tones to make other person understand his message, and that right tone is very important. The voice should be raised, or the pauses should be put where it is actually required, not stressing on the wrong phrase, wrong word. So these are the prerequisites of oral communication. Then what are the merits? Like, what are the benefits of using oral communication? So if we talk in general, it saves time. It is passed on very quickly. It saves money. No paperwork is there. Immediate feedback we can get. People can clarify their doubts immediately. It builds a good and healthy environment. It is a two-way communication which happens in oral communication. And it is the best tool to be used in case of emergency. Now, these are some of the benefits. Like if we go for oral communication, how it is going to help us, how it is going to affect us, what benefit it is going to give. These are the benefits. Next comes as demerits. Like, see, everything has two sides. Like as a coin has two sides, same way. Everything has positives as well as negative, merit as well as demerits, advantages as well as disadvantages. So here, what are the disadvantages? Now, if I'm passing on the information, at times when you're using oral communication, the information may get changed till the time it reaches the last person, may get affected. Because what I was trying to say to one person, when he's communicating the same thing to other person, he might add something or he might skip something. So this way, the person who gets the information in the end, he gets the entire new blunder, entire new information, which is the combination of minds of all different persons who were involved in this oral communication chain. So there are a lot of chances of misunderstanding. If the speaker is bad, you might lack attention. You might not be happy listening to that person. You might not pay proper attention. So again, with bad speaker, these things happen. The communication is very lengthy. For example, the communication is all about the policies of the organization. Like now, policies have a lot of points. Policies related to health, related to the medical, related to the insurance, related to their leaves, related to now if we are talking about leaves, there are different types of leave. So that type of communication, if we are doing orally, if we are telling orally, it's going to be very ineffective. No one will remember all those points. So again, for a lengthy communication, it is not effective. Second, what I say today, you don't have the proof that I told the same thing. For example, I told that you have to do this work and you have to finish off the work by by Friday. But actually that work was supposed to be done by the end of the day, EOD today. But the person to whom I have delegated the work cannot prove that I gave him the wrong deadline. I can say that I told you to finish it off by end of the day. So there is no validity. No one can check that who is right, I or the employer. So here, there is no legal validity of what you are speaking, and difficulty in fixing responsibility. And a listener may observe only some part of the oral message since the attention span differs from person to person. These are the demerits of oral communication. Next comes is written communication. So it is a formal type of communication. Like if we talk in general, what is written communication? Anything which is in a written form, like which we can read, that is a written communication. It can be in the form of mails, it can be in the form of document, it can be in the form of presentation, flyers, brochures, circulars, printouts, any of these, all these reports, all these things comes under the written mode of communication. Now, written mode of communication, if we talk in general, what do you think? What are the benefits or what are the demerits of written mode of communication? Think over that. We'll be coming to that point also. But first, let's complete what is written communication. So it is a formal type of communication. The sender of the message or his representative constitute the writer. So they frame the message, they write down that message, and they share that message to the person to whom they want to share that message to the receiver. So here the sender of the message or his representative. Now this message can be framed either by the sender of the message himself or by any of his representative who can write the message, who can draft the message and share the message. Written communication is usually considered binding on business organization and is often used as evidence. Many times when we are going with any kind of merger, any kind of projects where our where an external client is involved. So in that situation, these written form of communication are taken as the evidences. You will have the proof that what all things were agreed, what were the grounds on which we agreed. Like if we talk about the quotation, let's say you are entering into buying a new okay, you are a person who's into manufacturing, and you have entered into a contract with the person who is into raw material, supplying the raw material. So here the verbal communication, the oral communication won't be effective. Like while doing oral communication, at what prices you agreed, what benefits you were giving, what discounts you were offering, those things you said, even the receiver might forget, even you might also change over the period of time. So in that situation, when you write everything, when you share that proper quotation with the other person, they will have the written evidence that these were the things you told. Let's say, for example, the transportation cost for delivering the raw material is to be borne by the sender only, by the raw material supplier only. Now, oral communication, you told this thing, but at last moment, when the raw material was dispatched, it has reached to the receiver's office, and you say that it's your duty to pay the transportation cost. You don't have any proof. But if that would have been in the written form, you have the clear proof. You can show that these are the terms, these are the grounds on which we have agreed, and you are supposed to pay off that cost. So these written mode of communication act as evidence for to avoid any kind of future conflicts on the grounds which were agreed. So usually in the organization, in the business units, whenever a professional dealing happens, whenever business to business, business to customer, these type of communication, these type of contract happens, they always go with the written mode of communication rather than going with the oral mode of communication. The final decision, everything would be in the written form only, so that there are no chances of any miscommunication, misleading the information, or denying at the last moment. This written mode of communication, the most important benefit of this written mode of communication is the evidence. Now, in today's world, when you want to survive in today's world, evidences play a very important role. Everyone need evidence for whatever discussion has happened. So always each and every person goes with the written mode of communication within the organization. Technological advancement can enlarge the gamut of written communication through mails and other such facilities. Now, we do not have to go with the handwritten thing. We do not have to go with posting the things, because now technology is advanced. We have advanced technology where by just single click, you can send your written communication to any part of the world within fraction of seconds. It has even made easy to mail to draft the mails, to write the document, to create the document, because of the technological advancement. So here it becomes really very important to go with the written mode of communication whenever you are going with any business or the formal communication. Next, what are the factors in written mode of communication? Like who all are involved in this written communication? So the factors involved over here is, first is the writer, the person who is going to understand everything, or the person who is the originator of the message, either of them, either the representative of the originator or the originator himself will have to write the message. So he will be called as the writer, whosoever is writing, either the sender, originator, or his representative. Any one such person who will be writing down the message is known as the writer. Writer need to be there. If there is no writer, then who is going to draft the message? Who is going to write the message? So first factor in written communication is the writer who writes the message, the content. Now, second need to be there, writer is there, message is there. Content need to be there, like what we are going to communicate, what we have to say. outline of the content, what all things to be included, that should be known by the writer who is drafting the message, who is writing the message. The language use, next part. See, language is important in all channel of communication, whether you're going with oral, written, verbal, non-verbal, verbal. You have to take care of the language, which language should be used. So always use the language which is understandable by both the parties, by you as well as the receiver. So before drafting the content, before making the content, you have to know your receiver, like in which language he is comfortable, from which background he is there, so that you do not use some jargons or fancy word or unnecessary abbreviation in the message. Make sure you always write the entire and the complete message, so that each and every person, whosoever is reading, will get the clear picture. Message should be very clear, even if it is in written form. It should be clear and specific. All important points should be added in this. Let's talk about the quotation. Let's talk about the example which we right now took, that the supplier of the raw material. So the message from that supplier should be very much clear, that for what all things I'll be delivering, what are the prices quoted for that. If the quantities increase, what prices I'll be charging. The transportation cost will be borne by you. It will take almost 7 to 10 days, like the mentioning the days it will take to dispatch the item, days it will take, tentative days it will take to get the item delivered, that is the transportation time. Then quality of that material, some sample pictures of that material, all things should be written very clearly, specifically, so that other person understands by reading everything. He do not have to call you again and again to understand the incomplete information. So make your information clear as well as complete, and make sure of the language you are using. Now, the purpose of the communication. In written mode of communication, you should also know that why I'm communicating, what is the purpose. So in this example, the purpose is to buy raw material for your manufacturing unit. That is the purpose, and that is why you are entering into a communication with that person. Fifth point says the style adopted, like formal or friendly. Like what style you are adopting? Are you going with the proper formal style, or you have some friendly relation with that and you are going with the friendly style? So whatever relation you are holding, whatever style you are adopting, make it clear. But even if it is formal or friendly, the information need to be very specific, information need to be very clear, and information need to be complete. No incomplete information should be shared, even in the written form of communication. And last part, obviously, if sender is sending the message, writer is writing the message, who is going to get the message? The receiver. So the last part comes here is the receiver of the message. So these are the factors involved in the written communication. Next is the prerequisite of written communication. What are the prerequisites of written communication? Prerequisite here, first point says how much to put in writing. See, when I'm saying it should be complete, clear, specific, that means we don't have to add the life history. For example, when a person is preparing the quotation and he's sending the details about the material, the prices and everything to the manufacturer, you don't have to say that I buy it from there, it is of this quality, it is found rarely, it is having this much of weight. All these specifications he can check, he will know himself. You do not have to write the history of that thing, where to use, why to use, how to use. He is aware. If he is asking you for that thing, He already know why I want that thing, what is the use of that raw material. So when you're drafting your message, make sure you are not putting each and everything detailing. Make it clear and short. Just decide, create an outline and decide what all things are needed. For example, if the sender has just asked you about the quotation of some specific raw material, you are supposed to give him that quotation only. You do not have to poke your nose into this is used for this purpose, it is used for this purpose, it has been bought from this place. He's not interested in knowing that. If you want to know, he'll ask you. Right now, I just want to know the availability of the raw material and the price of that raw material. So you are supposed to draft the message having only these two specifications, that is availability as well as the price. Now, if in case you think that the raw material, there's a shortage of raw material, you can add that line that if you want to order, please place the order as a, because the demand is very much and I am having low stock. That you can intimate, so that after 2 days, if you get the reply, you can say that I have already mentioned that it was on high demand and right now I don't have that material available. All is sold out. These important points you should write, but not about from where to buy, when to buy. All these things are not required. How it is used, why to use this. All these points are not to be added. So whenever you are drafting a message, make sure you are having a clear picture of what the sender has asked and what exactly you are supposed to put in writing. What all information is necessary to be written in that document, and use that specific information only. Second point says, want to leave out, what to leave out. Now here, what you have to put, what you have to leave out, these both the points are related to each other only. So you need to be very specific about scrutinizing the information. You cannot write each and everything. You have to scrutinize the information, and you should know that thing, what is important, that to be added, and what is not important, which can be avoided. A lengthy document just where writing is there, no one will be interested in going through that. It should be very specific, highlighting the specific points. All these things should be there. Third point says when to stop. Now you should know, like, what is the end? Is the information complete? Should I stop here, or do I need to write anything more, anything else in the document or not? You should know that thing, when you have to start, what you have to write, what you have to leave, and when you have to stop. Next point says when to convey. Now again, timing is very, very important. The mail which you have received today, if you are answering, reverting back to that mail after 5 days, doesn't sound good. At least within 24 hours or 48 hours, you should convey your message. You should convey your feedback. You should convey your message. You should deliver your message to the other party. Time plays a very important role in business communication, whether it is written or oral. So here you need to be aware about when you should convey the thing, when you should revert. So that the time should be considered. That is very important in communication, in business communication. Last point says by what means to convey, like what mode you'll be going with the email, you'll be going with hard copy, how you'll be conveying, that also you need to decide. Now again, we are back with the next thing, that is merit of written communication. What are the advantages of written communication? First is precise and accurate. It is very precise, it is very accurate, it has all the important information which you should know, which should be communicated to you. So it is precise and accurate. It is easily verified. The origin and the things which are written in that can be very easily verified with the other party. Like you have written this, what does this mean? When you are speaking, you cannot put that, but you cannot catch that point, and you cannot say that why you have used this thing. Like, what is the use of this? Because maybe in oral, he might have said something and he can deny later. But here, when you have the written format, you can ask why this thing is added, why this additional cost is added, what is the use, why that it has increased the costing. So here it can be easily verified. It's a permanent record that is most important in business dealings or anything which need a proof that this is the permanent proof. For example, if you have entered into contract with any of the raw material, the supplier of the raw material for a year, that he will be providing, no matter how much increase or decrease happens in the how much increase happens on the price, he's not going to increase your price. But if there is reduced price, definitely he'll reduce your price. So you will have a permanent record if in case that price increases and he just give you an increased quotation. He just sends the raw material with revised price, revised increased price. You can show the document that this is the contract in which we have agreed upon. So you cannot put that cost, that additional increased cost now, because this contract is for a year. So here you will have this proof and it is a permanent record for you. You can use this record. Next is suitable for lengthy and complicated messages. Whenever the message is lengthy, like rules, policies, contracts, for all these things, this is the best mode of communication which should be required, which should be used, because lengthy communication cannot be communicated orally. Because see, our mind cannot gain lot of things at one go. We cannot pay attention for entire 1 hour to listen whatever the other person is speaking. Our mind get distracted. The concentration power for each and every person is very different. So here, this written mode of communication is the best mode of communication which is suitable for lengthy and complicated messages. Next is responsibility can be easily fixed. Now under this mode of communication, the fixing of responsibility becomes really very easy. And last point is it has the legal validity. It can be verified legally. If someone is doing again something, you can easily go for the legal things. You can easily approach the court for anyone not abiding by the contract you have entered. So it gives you the legal validity. Now, next point says, what are the demerits of written communication? Now, it is the slower method of communication. Yes, bit slow as compared to the oral mode of communication. Further delay if clarification are required. So it can bring further delay if clarification. Like, for example, your message was not complete. The other party is having some confusion. So it will take further more time to clarify those doubts, to draft the things again for the confusion, for clarifying their doubt. You'll again send it back. They'll again go through that. If the doubts are still not clear, they'll again get back to you. So this way, it delays the process. It might take a long time for solving all the clarification, for solving all the doubts. Leads to too much paperwork. Yes, definitely. There is lot of paperwork involved over here. When we talk about written mode of communication, you have to write everything. You have to think like what should be written, what should not be written. So it has lot and lot of paperwork. So here it becomes really very important that we work smartly. We set some design templates. We use that to at least to save some time. Like rest time, if it is taking a lot of time to draft anything, that cannot be saved. That you have to do. That paperwork is required, but you need to work smartly. Always a possibility of ambiguity or lack of Prehensibility, that is always there. Costly in terms of money and man-hour. Yes, it is very costly because again you will use software, printouts, the paperwork takes a lot of time, so man-hour is also increased. So here it becomes costly in terms of money and man-hour. So it is a costly affair. Next is no flexibility. There is no flexibility over here when we are talking about written mode of communication. And last is literacy essential. A person to whom we are sending the message, he or she should know, should be literacy essential. Like he should be in a stage to read, write, and understand the written communication which we have shared. So here reading, writing is again very important for understanding the message and for sharing the feedback. So here literacy is very essential when it comes to written mode of communication, though this literacy is not very essential part. That is not very important part when it comes to oral communication. Person who is not literal even can understand the message and can communicate, can come up with your feedback. But on the written mode of communication, this literacy is very, very important. So here we are done with the written mode of communication with the merits, demerits, factors, and prerequisites of written mode of communication. Just having a quick look, like what are the demerits? Demerits here says it is slower, it takes a lot of time, it is a costly affair, it needs it is not at all flexible, it needs literacy. The person to whom we are sharing the information should be a literate person. He should read, understand, and write the language or the message which we are sharing, because reading is important to understand the message, writing is important to share the understanding is important to share the feedback, and writing is important to write down the things and send it back to us, the feedback part. So all three things are very important when it comes to written mode of communication. And yes, there is lot of paperwork which is not there in oral mode of communication. So yes, with this we have completed the written mode of communication. Any doubts in oral and written mode of communication? Any doubts over here? No? Okay. So we are done with the written mode of communication. Now, in the next session, we will start with the next thing, that is the non-verbal communication. Till now, we were just discussing about the verbal communication. Now, in next session, we will discuss about the non-verbal communication. What are the different types of non-verbal communication? With this, we finish our today's session. We'll have next two sessions lined up for the day, that is group discussion and entrepreneurship, that will start at 4. And next, the last session of the day will start at 4:50. Bye-bye. Take care.